Wow. Can't say that I haven't seen that before from a Doc Rivers coach team. But even then, that was still surprising. The Milwaukee Bucks were up 117 to 111 with about 39 seconds left, and they proceeded to poop themselves and lose 119 to 118 in overtime in Indiana in Game 5. And now they've been eliminated with a lot of questions, more than ever, probably since before the 2020-21 season in the Giannis era. We got the Doc Rivers special. He waited way too long in a series to play the players that should be playing, which are the good players, and start the good players. Very clear early in the series that Brook Lopez was not going to cut it. Brook Lopez is getting up there in age and has quite frankly been an up and down player all year. Starting Taurean Prince and not starting AJ Green. And for as much as Kevin Porter Jr. is untrustworthy in crunch time and makes crazy erratic decisions, that was your only form of athleticism with a handle to create something off the dribble. And he didn't start until this game. And Doc Rivers waited way too long to start Giannis, Portis, Green, Gary Trent, and KPJ. Very reminiscent of some of the Clippers series he has coached. Very reminiscent of some of the Sixers series he has coached, which is why I say that was a very familiar watch for me from a Doc Rivers coach team, because I immediately think of the 2021 Atlanta Hawks series. Him and Ben Simmons were the top two reasons, Doc Rivers being number one, why they lost that series. And then somehow in the first half, Doc fell back into that old starting lineup based on the rotations with the old starters coming off the bench and immediately gave up a big run. And then I thought, at least in overtime, because Doc went with that starting lineup so much in the second half that it was going to run out of gas, but they actually looked like they were going to force a Game 6 back in Milwaukee. And then just puzzling turnovers, Kevin Porter Jr. turning the ball over in the last 40 seconds, AJ Green fouling Halliburton on an and one, Giannis getting caught out on a switch, which is low-key one of Giannis's, not weaknesses, but it's definitely not a strength. What makes Giannis special as a defender is he's one of the more special free safety, weak side help defenders of all time. And while he has length and foot speed, he can get caught laterally, and Tyrese Halliburton got him. How about that overrated players poll, by the way? Top vote getter, Tyrese Halliburton, which is just fucking ridiculous. But I don't know what the Bucks do from here, because you can't forget the big subtext in all of this in this series. The biggest loss, arguably, is Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles, his left Achilles, in Game 4. That injury and this subsequent collapse that I just witnessed watching Game 5 today, they just felt like inflection points, and the type of inflection points where, look, you've been around, now I can say it because I'm old enough. When you've been around as long as I've had, only 33 years, but whatever, I'm 33 years old. But I have watched sports long enough to see when eras and windows and stuff closes. And of course I could always be wrong or be off by like a year or whatever, whenever that era closing happens. But it just feels like I watched two inflection points that point to an end of the Giannis era. And look, it feels like we have been trying to get Giannis out of Milwaukee for like 6 years now. But we all know how the NBA works. And we all know what the Bucks' resources are, what they're tied up in. And this was something I brought up, before the season with the Bucks when I was previewing them. It's that they are also very old. And then you trade Chris Middleton for Kyle Kuzma, which honestly, you could say that he was better on defense than expected, but just offensively, just not the same player, not the same fit. Quite frankly, not the same mentality of player. And you traded away a championship piece, albeit a very unhealthy one, and it was clear the Bucks were scared of Chris Middleton's health. You still traded him for Kyle Kuzma, which was a downgrade, and you had to bench him in this game because he has been giving you nothing as a starter in this series. It just seems like everything is caught up with the Bucks. And it seems like no one outside of Milwaukee would be mad. Even Milwaukee fans, I feel like they wouldn't be mad if Giannis moved on. Now, I'm sure they wouldn't want that to happen, and I'm sure emotions are raw right now, so if any Bucks fans catches this video, I'm sorry. But that was all I could think about watching, Game 4 on Sunday, and then watching Lillard tear his Achilles, and then watching Game 5 and watching the subsequent collapse. Now, one could say, what if Doc Rivers actually had, moved faster in terms of adjusting to his lineups? Because we all know Doc Rivers is a plan A guy. Doesn't like to go to plan B. He's waiting to the very last minute, to his last dying breath, to make a lineup adjustment. To a lineup that has been working. What would it be different? Would it be different? I'm not so sure, because I just think Indiana's a bad matchup for Milwaukee. No matter what type of lineup combinations were out there, there was still a weak defensive length somewhere that could cause rotation. The Pacers still just seemed to get whatever they wanted this whole series. I just don't know where the Bucks go from here. I don't know what type of assets they could offload, to get any ammo to make a trade or something. I mean, Giannis with athleticism and shooters definitely works, but do they have the assets to help them retool and get younger, faster, stronger? Like, Jericho Sims getting less minutes than Taurean Prince in these games, I just don't understand it. That is just somebody that is clearly an athletic, lively body that could just shake some shit up. But that's Doc Rivers. He trusts who he trusts, for better or for worse. And it's always for the worse, especially when you are trying, to bring him on as like the coach that could take you over the top because you have the great player on the roster. Know how that went. I could tell you from experience. And look, some of it, the roster was what the roster was, and there were just some things Doc had that was out of his control. But it's the same Doc Rivers shit in this series that we saw, in every other playoff series, basically. Like, he clearly had a better coaching series against Indiana last year than this year. Like, that's not even a question to me. But this is a classic Doc Rivers type of series. And collapse in Game 5. And where do the Bucks go from here? I don't know. Maybe Bucks fans can comment below, because as easy as it is, yes, admittedly, the trade Giannis route is the easy thing to say, but it is inevitably here now. We are at this point where it is a tangible conversation, because this is clearly an era's crossroad, if you will. But I'm open to other suggestions. But I'm looking at it and, you don't have your pick this year. The second round pick you're getting is going to be the second best of Washington's trio of second round picks. You still got a swap left with New Orleans in 2026, depending on, by then who knows if Giannis had already been traded or not. You have a top 55 protected pick from Utah. So that's just in these first 2 years, you're kind of, asset strapped. Because that 2026 pick, if Giannis is still on the team, is going to be, a high pick. Or if he requests a trade, that's going to be a lottery pick. But I'm just wondering what assets the Bucks have, what maneuverability the Bucks have to kind of rebuild around Giannis. I saw a tweet, and it's, not wholly accurate, but I also thought it was pretty funny. Giannis has kind of caught a little bit of the T-Mac. Now, whether that's through injuries and all that stuff, but since that championship, he's caught a little bit of the T-Mac and can't get out of that first round. Made it to that second round against Boston where he was a fucking monster in that series. But it's been injuries one after another. Injuries to core players on the championship team, whether it was, Chris Middleton, Dame Lillard last year, Dame Lillard now this year, Giannis himself. I just don't know what the Bucks do from here. I really don't. They don't have a first or a second round pick in 2027. Of course, that's when, the first round picks for Damian Lillard, that's when they start to come to roost in 2028 and 2029 with the pick swaps and all that. You really don't own your own stuff cleanly until the 2031 season. So how do the Bucks rebuild around Giannis? He's 30. How long is it going to take to rebuild around Giannis? And does Giannis look at all of that and be like, my co-star is going to be 35 coming off of a torn Achilles. Dame's gone all of next year for sure. What does Giannis do from here? Either way, I guess we're going to find out something this summer.